Good evening, stream. Today's prompt is most men don't change until life forces them to. And I just wanted to break this down a little bit and try to think about some behavioral structures and maybe some ways around this and maybe why this happens to people. Why it seems like it is very hard to break habitual habits and to set a goal for change, trying to change what your current situation is. So, based off of you know, in my own personal experience and some psychoanalytic data, we basically see that people just don't want to change, whatever it is, and that's fairly evolutionarily based because imagine, I install doors for a living, for example. I've been doing this for 5 years so far. I'm, starting this podcast, or not podcast, but doing these lives and trying to build an audience and whatnot. But, that's all side. My, main job right now is that. But if someone came along and told me that, Dylan, I think you'd be a really, really good ballet dancer, and I just immediately dropped my, impact and hammer and everything I need for door installation and went to a ballet school. Every time someone suggested that I do something different, that would be a very, you know, beneficial way to go through life. So you have different systems in your brain, and you got in your hypothalamus, you have a system for exploration. But after that, a lot of your brain is inhibitory. So there's systems set up to prevent you from changing your course of action. It creates safety in the known and danger in the unknown. And that's basically with everything that you do. If you already have something mapped out, that's going to feel more safe, and understandably so, because you don't have to venture out into the wilderness to, you know, try to find something new to do with your life. You can just keep doing the same thing, and that's going to be more safe. A good example of behavior not changing until life forces you to is I don't know if any of the viewers will have had an alcoholic in their family, for example. But the story for an alcoholic that gets away from the addiction, it doesn't typically go like, oh, I just woke up one day and I felt like it was just time to change, so I just put down my drinking and I went on to have a better life because of it. It's like, no, that's not typically what happens. What typically happens for an alcoholic is, you know, they come home one day and, the lock is changed on their front door and their wife and kids are nowhere to be found. And the wife leaves a note and says that if you don't clean up your act, you're never going to see us, or you're not going to see us anymore because I'm getting the children away from you because you're an alcoholic and you can't control your urges. And then the man has to face reality. He has to face the consequences of his actions. And that's when change occurs. It's at the bottom. It's at the lowest possible point. Change just doesn't happen whenever it doesn't have to happen. So it's very psychologically understandable for people not to want to change. It's very understandable to, get kind of stuck in a loop. That's why you got like the conception of the rat race, and people feeling trapped in a system in their life where there can be more to life than the system that you're trapped in. Your brain is set up in a sense so that way it feels safe to stay in a rut, even if there is a part of you that longs for more. You're not You don't have lack of motivation. You just lack being anchored into something that is worthwhile. Okay, take this for example. No matter what you do in your life, regardless if you choose to do something or choose not to do something, regardless, just as a prerequisite for life, there's going to be suffering. There's going to be pain. There's a great Buddhist parable that I forgot which of the texts it comes from, but essentially the Buddha is talking to a man and he's like, okay, what if I shot you with an arrow? And the guy's like, what? And he's like, if I shot you with an arrow, would that be terrible? Would that suck? Would that be painful? He's like, yeah, of course it would. It would be terribly painful. Then the Buddha's like, well, what if I shot you with an arrow again in the same spot? Would that also suck? And he's like, yeah, that would suck. That'd be terrible. And the Buddha's like, well, the first arrow is life. The first arrow is the suffering that comes with life. No matter what you do, there's an amount of pain that you're going to have to endure for the sake of living itself. To have great good, there are potential for great bad. So there's the suffering that comes, that's the first arrow, just from living life itself. But the second arrow is self-inflicted. You can choose to be hit by the second arrow or not. It's the way that you react to the pain of the first arrow. You can get hit with the first arrow and decide that because of this arrow, life no longer has any meaning, and this is, you can open up a pit of despair and hell, and you can wallow in the fact that you've been hit by the first arrow, and that's the second arrow hitting you. Or you can, take the fact that you've been hit and then, channel that for something better. So no matter what you decide to do, you're gonna endure pain. My thought process on this is, you need to choose something that will make the suffering that you endure in your life worthwhile. And that's where responsibility comes in. Most people won't change until they have a responsibility that's worth changing for. Like for me in my life, I kind of drifted through my high school days, not really having a lot of direction until I met my wife. And then she was extremely smart, is emotionally very intelligent, and she became a call for me to become more mature. I had something in my life, that a responsibility to become more mature because of me meeting her. And there's all kinds of responsibilities that you can take onto yourself that will help you to grow. A lot of people see responsibility as a negative thing. Like, you think of, oh, I'm responsible, I have to go do this thing, and I have to do that. It's like, that's very pessimistic and nihilistic language. Have to? Anything. You don't live up to your feelings. You live up to your responsibilities. The things that you're responsible for in your life, that is what drives meaning. It's like, I'm responsible for my children. There's nothing more there. Like, that's a part of my life that drives meaning, and it takes work and it takes effort. But the actual meaning in life comes from the things that you take responsibility for. You can kind of coast through life and reject your responsibility, but don't be surprised when you lack meaning. The meaning doesn't come from the meaning in life is the things that you attach yourself to that are bigger than yourself. Want to be very clear. There's systemized ways to take on responsibility. So from going from high school age, for example, the progression was I got a job. That's the first thing. You do well at your job. That produces a level of responsibility that you have to take to do said job, and that will help you gain confidence. You're not going to gain confidence by listening to this YouTube video or any YouTube video. You have to have input data that you receive a positive reinforcement for. You go to work, you do a good job, you get your paycheck, you become more responsible. Then the progression was I got married, and I'm now responsible to my wife. I'm the sole provider for my home, so I'm responsible financially for our home. And then we added children, so now I'm responsible for rearing children and providing financially for the children, and all these things are natural ways of a systematic way to get responsibility. But not everybody has the immediate access to some of them. So everybody, once you're, out of, and in college too, you can have the responsibility of, studying proficiently for whatever you're interested in your academic pathway. But to each of these extent, your responsibility will be more. But the first one is true for everybody. Like getting a job, being responsible for that, that's going to help you derive meaning. After that, and let's say you haven't met a person that you are talking to potentially marry, and you're not with someone, and you're not married, and the concept of kids is not in the picture yet. So those two things aren't available at the moment. You can specify your own source you can specify what it would mean to win in your life over the long term. So what I mean by that, there's a biblical narrative in the Old Testament, and Jacob lays down and he has a dream. He reconstitutes his life. He wants to be a good person. He wasn't a very good person, but he wants to be a good person. And he has a dream of Jacob's ladder. And on this ladder, it goes from earth to heaven, and angels and the godly beings, are either descending or going up the ladder. That's the way life kind of is. You can aim at goals that are low, or you don't necessarily aim at goals. Not aiming at a goal will let you do this. Like nihilism. It's like service of the shortest term, not nihilism, hedonism. Service of your shortest term whim. It's like the lowest possible form of goals that you could have. That's always aiming at the bottom of the ladder. Whereas the inverse of that would be the greatest conception of what you possibly could become. Like self-actualization. Becoming all that you could possibly be. That would be the ideal, like you are the closest thing that you can get to Jesus, I guess, or whatever worldview you subscribe to. Whatever the highest possible idealized human would be. That's what you're aiming at the top of it. And you can go through life aiming at this highest potential, and you can make meaning out of your pursuit of said thing. So to tie all this back in, if you don't have systematic things in your life to create meaning yourself, you have to create a responsibility on your own. And this is extremely difficult for people that don't have their life set up in a way where they take on physical responsibilities young. I have like, my heart's out to you. Like, good luck. It is, your brain is literally against you to a certain extent for trying to derive purpose and meaning and responsibility and changing behavior in this state. Your brain is inhibitory, mainly inhibitory, which means it's not going to want to change your behavior. So this is going to take attention and a lot of focus, and really being adamant about your future. So you have to. So all the Jacob's Ladder thing was to say, you got to plan out what it means to win your life. And this is dangerous. And I'll tell you why it's dangerous. If you set out a plan for you want long-term plans. Let's say for the next 30 years, right? If you live the next 30 years, what would it look like if you absolutely won? Like, everything that your heart's desire was like perfect. And I'm not talking about like win the lottery, like get deeper, get like the impact you want to have. And don't assume that the universe owes you anything. This is what's going to ground you to the effort that you have to give to achieve this. But if you set that finish line, if you set that goal, it gives you a way to win. But it's dangerous because it also gives you a way to fail. And most people can drift through life and they don't set these goals for themselves, and they can kind of, live in the cycle, the rat race, or whatever you want to fill in this with. But you don't have no way to win in that game. It's not the best game. You have to have a way to win the game for it to be, a worthwhile experience. What would you do in your life that would make it worthwhile? For me, for example, right, over this 30-year stretch, I want to have an amazing family life. Like, I will not sacrifice my family life to nothing. It is non-negotiable. I do these lives in the car ride on the way home because I'm basically wasting this time regardless. So I systemize everything that I do so that way I'm not sacrificing my family life. I even try to adhere to a Sabbath if I can. I'm not perfect at that, but I've been trying to implement the habit of adhering to the Sabbath. In my 30-year plan, my family life is amazing. So what does that mean? There's inhibitory functions around that. I'm not going to go cheat on my wife. I'm not going to do something negligible and not consider my children, right? I'm going to provide properly. I'm going to provide emotionally and spiritually, and try to be there, actually there, not just physically there, but actually being there for my family and investing my time there. So that's one of the functions. The second part of my like 30-year goal is I'm really, really passionate about helping youth move from stages in life. So from high school to workforce, from high school to college, from college to workforce, from single to married, or single to dating to married, and then married to children. All those transitions cause paradigm shifts. And whenever you're going through something like that, it's like the times of your life that you are able to grow the most, because a new stage of your life is calling you to be better than you are now. Whenever you have children, if you weren't a very good, efficient worker before, having children and being at home and being the provider for your children will unlock a new gear that you didn't know that you had, because the responsibility now calls you to do it. Moving out of your parents' home, it's like that's gonna unlock. You become the person that can. You become the person that can take on the challenge. If you voluntarily take on, now this is a psychological framework. I'm also a student I take college courses for psychology, theology, and philosophy, and neuroscience. But anyway, whenever you take on a challenge and you do so voluntarily versus doing so non-voluntarily, so let's say there's no one in your house, right, but you, and a burglar comes in, and you don't want to confront this burglar at all. You don't want to. Versus a burglar comes in and your children are there, and the burglar is, vicious and dangerous, and you want to now confront this burglar. From a metaphysical standpoint, so all the way down to like the way that the hairs move on your body and how you're literally all the cortical functions of your body change based off of your desire. Like, which one are you is a stress hormone released and you cower down and you try to hide, or do you confront the problem? You change to a metaphysical level. Almost everything about you is different. Like, you look the same, but every chemical that's running through your body at that moment is entirely different. So taking on these challenges head on, taking on the challenge is what makes you the person that's capable of doing a said thing. Like, a lot of people think that, storybooks are written about a hero, but that's kind of a misrequisite. The storybook is written about a person that became a hero because he did the thing. Like, we like to think about the knight in shiny armor that goes and defeats the dragon and saves the princess as the hero goes and slays the dragon. He doesn't become the hero until he does it. He wasn't the hero before that. He was just someone brave enough to confront the dragon. So taking on the challenge is what makes you the hero. Prevailing over the challenge is what makes you the hero, not just you're not automatically the hero. You have to become it. Everyone has to become it. So back to my setup, I'm passionate about those transition periods and trying to help people, think differently and, incorporate more into what they believe they can become. To extend this, I'm also extremely passionate about the children that grow up in homes that don't have a father present or a mother present. 1 in 4 kids today in America grow up without one of the two parents present for some reason. Could be death, could be the parent not being there, for standard reasons, infidelity, divorce, never, out of wedlock, the dad left and didn't come back, whatever. Disproportionately, like 70% of Black youth don't have a father in the home for some reason. Sometimes it's death, but the majority is not. And these children grow up without a role model, without a mentor, without something to measure themselves against, and the cards are against them from the jump. Like the cards aren't already against America's youth, naturally. There's so many distractions today. You have to stay very focused. It's never been easier to be complacent. Like, the worst thing that can happen if you just coast through life is, you have a decent life. I mean, you won't really derive meaning. You won't, you know, feel like you've actuated, but you can sit and have Amazon deliver immediately. Like, comfort is killing potential. Comfort is killing modern comfort is killing meaning in men and women. We've, as a society, prioritized comfort and convenience over meaning and over responsibility. And because we've got comfort in the highest possible place, we now see responsibility as a burden rather than something to derive meaning out of. And this leads to the most depressed generation in the last multiple centuries, even though as a whole, the way we live is significantly easier. And, like, we have running water and plumbing, and we have, access to bountiful food, way too much food, if you consider it all of it food. Maybe some chemically processed food. But, we have access to stuff to eat. And in the last, century, that's been a new phenomenon. For the entirety of human existence, we've had to struggle to find food. And for the last century, that's changed. It is rapidly changed the way we view the world, and we're prioritized for comfort. Things like Grubhub and Uber Eats and Amazon and all these things are great advancements, but they set the paradigm of our culture as, how can I go through life the easiest way possible? And going through life the easiest way possible, like, let's think you were talking to a God being. Let's say you wanted wisdom. Like, you want to be someone that's wise. Well, you're going to get that. You have to go through things, and you have to map out the narratives and see the patterns of the things that don't change. You're going to have to go through some struggle to gain wisdom. If you want to become very strong, you go to the gym and you push yourself to past your limit. And that's how you build muscle growth. It's like a lot of people will say cliche things like, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and all kinds of these. I think people inherently know that they have to confront problems in order to become someone that can solve them, but the brain's an inhibitory being. It's not that you're unmotivated to change, it's that you're not anchored, and you anchor yourself through responsibility. And if you don't have a responsibility, like the responsibility that you have isn't good enough, you're going to have to make one. So back to the point, I'm passionate about youth in America and trying to make marginal difference in fatherlessness rate. If 1% improvement this generation, that can be compounded throughout multiple generations. If 1% of the children that, like in the Black community, for example, don't repeat the cycle, the chances are another 1% the next generation, and maybe the next generation and the next generation. And over hundreds of years, there could be like societal reformation. Like, that's my mission, societal reformation. Also, just preparing young folks for everyday life, from every perspective, from a psychological perspective, from deep thoughts on a theological perspective, from a financial perspective. A lot of people go into life with way too little information on a financial perspective. All these things matter deeply to me. And since they bug me, and since there's a hole that I can fill, that is now another thing that gives me meaning. It's a reason that I get up in the morning. I have many reasons to get up in the morning now. I used to waddle through life with feeling like everything was just happening around me. Like I was just a ghost. Like nothing mattered. I was completely nihilistic, even though I went to church and adhered to all these things, but none of it was real. It was all just felt fake. And the point that I'm really trying to drive home is that responsibility brings meaning. And however that you have to obtain them to that is what's going to provide you with a sense of fulfillment. So let's set out what it means to win your life. Like the top of Jacob's ladder. What is the best possible thing that could happen? You make an impact. You fix the problem that bugs you. Like I have a mother-in-law. She has been dealing with a very particular form of respiratory problems that are, she can't find help. She can't get good help. She's been to many, many doctors. I'm not sure the doctoral system is set up perfectly to actually be able to help people. They just really prescribe medicine to cover up, put a Band-Aid over a problem, but she can't really figure out what it is. She's bugged by it. Literally, she has a sickness and it bothers her. She started school for holistic medicine and health to try to understand her problem. I would imagine that because that thing bugs her, she has now found not just a passion, but a calling. Like the thing that you will do without anyone telling you to do it. You just want to do it. That's a passion. So for me, I study philosophy, I study psychology, I study theology, and I've started studying neuroscience all through Peterson Academy. I can just sit and learn and take in all that information, and I just love it. It's like amazing. It doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like a drag. Some people will sit through a psychology course and they would just be like, this is so terrible. I would rather do anything except for this. Or the neuropsychology is like really vocab intensive and a lot of neuron synapses, glutamine, all these neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin. Serotonin, that's your mood regulatory hormone. Whenever you implement this goal, this high goal, this top of Jacob's ladder's goal, serotonin actually releases whenever you make progress towards a goal. It's crazy how this works. So it isn't upon achieving a goal. A lot of people think I need to set this goal and I need to achieve it to feel good. It's like you're setting really short-term goals. Like that's a dopaminergic reward. Like whenever you achieve a goal, you get a hit of dopamine. That lasts very, 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 very little amount of time. But if you set a long form goal out in the future, way far away, the progress that you make towards that goal, when acknowledged, releases serotonin. That's a mood regulating hormone. If you feel frantic, if you feel meaningless, if you feel like you're not doing anything that's worthwhile, ironically enough, certain, I want to say cocaine. Yeah, I believe it is cocaine. different drugs will affect different chemicals in your brain. So, some are depressants, some are make certain parts of your brain hyperactive, like hallucinogens and stuff. But cocaine will make your brain release serotonin. You feel like you're doing something meaningful when you take hits of cocaine. That is dangerous. Talk about a heck of a drug. That is scary to think that you can take a drug and it makes you think that you are doing something meaningful in your life. Terrifying. The way to actually get serotonin is to take, like I said at the beginning, responsibility, make a goal around the responsibility, and improve over time. The improvement, the more things that you're doing that encompasses this, the more serotonin will release. It also has anti-stress correlates. It's good. It helps regulate your mood. It really gives you like the sense of fulfillment. That is the neurochemical that is associated with fulfillment, and you get that by progress towards a goal. It's absolutely amazing. So that's why it's so important to set up the system, to set up what it means to win in your life. Whenever you do that, and you make even minimal progress toward this, then you start to regulate your mood better. You start to feel more accomplished. Like, ever since I had clarity around my mission, around what bugged me, you just sit down and you, like, a lot of people's like, I don't know what my purpose is. Like, I won't start because I don't know what my purpose is. The reason you probably don't know what your purpose is because there's so much gosh darn information, no one can think for themselves anymore. If you go looking through, social media, you'll get like 87 people trying to throw purpose on you. You'll get 87 people trying to, here, start this side hustle, make this money, do this, do that. And that's another thing to talk about. If you're in a financial pinch, it's hard to think about. It's hard to think 30 years out when your bills are coming due and you have to have the money next week. But you can use that as motivation. Tie this all back together. Your purpose. Most people know their purpose. You don't think you do, but most people have something that they want to do or that interests them, and they would do it even if they didn't get paid for it. For me, that's learning. But learning can be applied in different ways. Like, it helps me do these videos because it actually gives me, philosophical and psychological and neuroscience and theological implications for these thoughts on how the world works and how the brain works, and what ways you can set your life to where you can derive the most out of what you're doing. You can't copy somebody else's meaning. So there'll be something that you want to do no matter what, and there'll be something that annoys you about the world, and make that your problem. The thing that annoys you about the world, that's now your problem. What can you do to fix it? Like, don't say it's beyond you. There's some minimal amount of thing that you can do to fix your problem. Maybe it's something small. Maybe it's within your own house. Maybe it's within your own family. Maybe it's within your own community. But don't underestimate how much getting your own house in order will change your life. And even in China and Japan, their doctors will, psychologists will go to a person's house and they'll diagnose the patient based off of the way that the house is. They'll say something like, "There's too much yin here. There's too much yang. There's too much yin here. There's too much yang. There's too much order. There's too much chaos." If someone's life, home life, is surrounded by chaos, the way that we think about psychological health is kind of funny. It's like the chances of you being sane in an absolutely insane family are like, might as well be zero, because there is nothing stable to be around. Like, if you were separated from it, the chances of it could improve, yeah, sure. But like, being sane in an insane society is so unlikely, it might as well be zero. Like, there was a quote Jordan Peterson shared. It's like, a mother's only as happy as her most miserable child. It's like, your psychology is tied to the social fabric around you. Your mental health, not your psychology. Your mental health is tied to the social fabric around you. Like, go through your life, your short-term life, and take a step up the ladder. Take a step up Jacob's ladder, and find something that you're putting off. Find some chaos and put order to it. Like in Genesis 2, God descends upon the waters, but the waters aren't separated until the second day. So what does Genesis mean by waters in verse 2? It's like, well, obviously that's going to be a metaphor if the waters don't exist till later. Like, the waters are the pre-cosmogonical chaos, the potential of everything that is, everything that could be. God is the spirit that moves upon the potential or chaos and that creates the order that is good or very good. That's a definition of God as he is manifested in Genesis. He moves across the waters and he creates the order that is good and very good. The first thing that he does is, as far as humans are concerned, as far as this narrative story is concerned, is he creates man in his image. So God creates man in the image of the spirit that creates order out of chaos. Definitionally. That means we're set up for that. That means we're set up to take the things that are chaotic in our environment and create order out of them. If there was no problems in the world, then maybe there could be no meaning left, but there are plenty of problems still yet to solve. And even if there weren't, there's still structure to be made in your own life. So you can start at the bare minimum. You can start by making your bed. It's hard to change the world before you make your bed or clean your closet or have your house organized. You have to set up your life so that way there isn't too much yin or too much yang. It's never been easier to be distracted. And it's never been easier to be complacent either, because it wasn't all too long ago that if you didn't get up in the morning and go plant the seed, then you didn't eat come harvest. It wasn't that long ago when that was the reality of most people. You had to be responsible, and that gave you meaning. You had to do stuff. There was no passively moving through life. There was no not having an aim. It was built in to the structure of everyday life. Today we live in a society where a lot of the most fundamental things, the fundamental things we need for living, are taken care of. And the comfort of that makes responsibility harder to take on. Like it's become a thing recently where you will have people talk about parenting. Like adulting. I'll adult today. I gotta go do my laundry. I'll adult today. And it almost has the premise like, so you do certain things and you adult, but everything else you just like are in service of your short-term whim, I guess. The way the society is set up now, it's hard to take responsibility. But in responsibility is the gate that unlocks meaning. Think about it. If you feel like you're lost, what have you haven't tried? Taking on more responsibility. More of the same is not going to change anything. That's the definition of insanity. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, that's the definition of insanity. So you have to break the script. You have to realize that meaning comes from taking on hardships. It comes from taking on that goal. It comes from the chaos around your house. It comes from setting up your map of reality as accurately as possible, keeping a radically open mind. Really, all I want to see is people be able to make the shift that I made whenever I literally felt like nothing was worth doing, and all I could muster to do was come home and sleep and maybe play video games. And to the point now that I'm excited for what I can accomplish the next day. Like, I've never done more work. I work a full-time job. I started today at 5:30, and I'm not going to get home until past 7. I am doing a YouTube channel. I want to impact the youth of America and maybe even abroad. After the YouTube channel starts, I want to start a nonprofit. And the nonprofit is going to directly impact fatherless youth and motherless youth in America, to give them role models and other ways of thinking about life, so that way they're not trapped into a victimhood state of mind from a young age. And then there's another step beyond that, but it's just getting off the point. But it still has to do with helping youth be able to manage and go into their life having a good deck, having the possibility to self-actuate, to achieve everything that they could become. I think everyone has that potential. I think that people end up getting distracted, and because of those distractions and because of the inhibitory functions of the brain, people don't want to change. And it takes you to your breaking point to change, but you can set your own responsibilities instead of waiting for the world to, put something on your plate to be worth changing for. Change for your future family that's depending on you to lead them. Change for your future family that's depending on you to provide for them. Change for your future kids that need a solid role model in their lives. Change for your future self. Change for yourself now. It's like you're not motivated. You just don't have something worth suffering for. Change for yourself now. This emptiness that you feel because you don't have a solid direction, that can be cured through taking responsibility and determining what it means to win your life and taking steps to get there. It can be cured through organizing the chaos through your life. Just find the minimal thing that you've been neglecting. Find a minimal thing, like perhaps it's been a while since you've cleaned your room. Find that minimal thing and just start it. Maybe it's been too long since you've cleaned your entire room. Maybe organize a drawer. And then if you can do that tomorrow, maybe organize another drawer. Maybe by the end of the week, your entire dresser will be organized. And then you can go to your closet. And then you can go to the floor of your bedroom. And then you can go to the rest of it. And eventually your bedroom will be organized. And then after that, you'll be able to and be able to think for yourself in the future, be able to set that goal, to be able to make the meaning in your life important to you. To think about it this way, like, what is meaning? If you think of something as being meaningful, it's worth whatever it was to get. So if I had a meaningful experience, I had a meaningful experience where, I went on vacation, that means whatever I gave to get that experience, it was worth it. That's how you create meaning in your life. Instead of this big abstract thing, it's like, what would make your life worth the suffering that you endure? Life meaning. It's not as complicated as everybody makes it seem, and it's not some Ponzi scheme to make you, a billionaire overnight. It's not going to be under some bushel. You're not going to find, the one for you under a rock. You become what the one for you would want to have as a partner. Yeah, that's a good way to think about that. Instead of wishing that the one would come as far as a partner, start now. What is the attributes of this person that is the one? It's like, oh, they're handsome, they're charming, they're, or they're beautiful, and they're nice, and they're competent, and all these things. And you don't have a job, you haven't cleaned your room, and you tell yourself that oh, whenever this person comes along, I'll change. I will change to, be better for them. But the chances are that the one is not even going to be remotely interested in you because you aren't to that caliber. Change now to become someone that person would want. That can be a goal, and you can make progress to that. From diet, from, putting order to the chaos around your immediate environment. All these things are possible. Through the responsibility, you receive meaning. And most people don't change until it's too late. Some people meet the girl, and there's just too much to fix and too little time. You can't just reboot your entire life in a minute. Unfortunately, it takes time, attention, and effort. And people don't change until it's too late. You'll want to stop being an alcoholic whenever your children and wife leave you. And maybe you get them back, but maybe you don't. Change when it's too late. Carl Rogers, a famous psychologist, one of his famous things is the most fundamental aspect for psychotherapy to work is the willingness of the individual to come to psychotherapy. The willingness to admit that there is a problem and it needs to be fixed. If you feel like there's nothing in life worth living for, and there's nothing that drives you, I want you to think about these things. Take the bare minimum next step. Take what is one small thing that you've been putting off, and put order to that. And that's a start. That's the first step of Jacob's ladder. Organizing your environment around you, and learning that attaching yourself to things that are higher than you are what create meaning. Taking responsibility for the things around you, taking responsibility for others, and taking responsibility for problems in this world to solve, and actually putting forth meaningful effort to achieve those things. That drives meaning. You don't change to the height of your feelings. You change to the height of your responsibility. And however that comes forth in your life, rather it be through, choices and things that you pursue, or something that you create for yourself, that is the fundamental first step. And I'm speaking from someone that's recently experienced this. You have to have it's like missing a whole component of life. Having a meaningless life. You can create what's meaningful. And that's a paradigm shift that's worth having. So hopefully y'all got something out of this video. If y'all are playing it back outside of the live, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. This is Dylan James Growth. Here we are, challenging paradigms. We believe that excellence is a habit and it's practiced daily, and that everyone here has the ability to achieve it. They just have to get rid of limiting self-beliefs and take responsibility for their life. And regardless of the hand that they're dealt, don't accept the second arrow. You're gonna get hit with the first arrow, but make it worth it. But that's what we're striving to do here at this channel, and we want to see generational change in youth, and then the way that change the hand, change the deck, change the systemic factors that are amalgamated against young Americans today. It's like, let's put forth some show some excellence and win. I believe in winning. So leave a like, subscribe, join the family, check out some traditional long form content, check out the reels, and I'll see you on the next one.